White Line Fever. God, I remember getting this one. It just come out. It was only available in hardback when I was in England, 2002. It was towards the end of 2002. A copy of it. It's at my parents now in England. I'm in Japan. But I read it every time I go back to the UK. We read it. Anyway, yeah, so out it came. Lemmy's Autobiography, which had long been awaited. I remember he was being asked about his autobiography in 1996 as an interview. They released King Biscuit Flower Hour. They'd done a show in New York with Robbo, when Robbo was in the band, and they released that show. And they stuck an interview at the end with Lemmy in, I think, 95 or 96. And then they said that the interview made some reference to the fact that there's some notes on the table, looked like it was part of his book. So it'd been long awaited. And yeah, he kind of, I'll reference it to bits and pieces. I mean, this is a review about White Line Fever, but I've already reviewed Mick Wall's excellent Lemmy the Biography. But I will reference it to Lemmy's biography and a couple of other things I've seen, read and heard. One of which was, meeting Fast Eddie Clarke. In the year 2000, he managed the band I was in. I've spoken that in another video. But hearing a few things from Fast Eddie Clarke, so very much from the horse's mouth, as it were. Yeah, there's another point of view to Lemmy's White Line Fever, because Lemmy just charges through this book. I mean, it's just to imagine a book like Lemmy would be. One band folds, he's straight onto the other. He does roadieing for Hendrix. He's in the Rocking Vickers earning £1,000 a week or something back in 1967. But he gets sick of it. I don't know if it was 1,000, but apparently they're earning a lot of money. But even so, he gets sick of it, and he wants London. The Rocking Vickers was stuck in the north of England, where Lemmy was from originally, or Wales, or is it Colwyn Bay? Colwyn Bay. His love of horses and farmyards and fields and stuff. So, but he had a long way to go to become a rock star. But he got with the Rocking Vickers, and then he sacked that off and went to London and wound up roadieing for Hendrix for a while, and then it's become selling speed, and he hooks up with Dick Mick from Hawkwind because they just want to see how long they can stay awake for. And one day Dick Mick says, "Why don't you come onto a Hawkwind gig? We need a bass player," and he's never played a bass before. And anyway, most people watching this will already know the story inside out, Motorhead fans. But it's just, it's not really a case of right place, right time with Lemmy. There was always going to be a right place and a right time. He was going to make damn sure of it by just not going to sleep till there was a right place and a right time. I mean, he was going to be what he became, come hell or high water. And but I think sometimes there is almost that one review of the book. I mean, got generally very positive reviews. One review which sort of made me sort of gave me a little laugh or whatever was this person wrote the review and said, "I wish he'd gone a bit more in depth and spoken about his feelings more, and all we get is the heavy metal armor, I'm a hard rock star Lemmy." And this person wrote, I think it was on Amazon, some person wrote in the comments, said, "What did you want his secret life as a ballet dancer?" it was Lemmy. But so that's very much how he presents himself. He gets kicked out of Hawkwind, he's straight back in England. He's formed a band and they're playing at the Roundhouse or wherever their first gig was, and he says that was quick. It only took me about 6 weeks to get it back on the show. There's nothing, if you read a Mick Wall's book, there's nothing. He was really wanting to get back on Hawkwind. He was very depressed. He was tearful, really down, and for weeks and weeks he moped around and had to be pretty much pushed into forming that band, just to try and keep it, just for the management at the time, Doug Smith, just for them to try and keep his name because he was hot stuff and being kicked out of Hawkwind. But there's that, and then I heard from Fast Eddie Clarke, and it's quite common that, well, he says that when Motorhead was struggling for ages, even after the classic after the classic lineup had formed originally, and they were skint starving and living in squats, as Lemmy puts it, and eventually, I think Phil Taylor, Filthy Phil, he kicks the side of the van. He's pissed off about something, and probably after fighting with Bob's, their ever faithful roadie, who got kicked out of the band for making advance on Motorcycle Irene. I think that's how Phil broke his wrist or his knuckles or something. Um, no, that was he broke his hand and he hitting a junkie, hitting a heroin addict, and then the next time I think it was Bob's, and for which Bob's got fired. But anyway, yeah. So anyway, when they're in the depths of there, just couldn't get arrested, as they say, and Phil freaked out and kicked the side of the van and broke his toes and said, "That's it, enough of this fucking band. I'm out." And Lemmy was saying, "What was going to do, man?" And in the book, he's saying, "I was well prepared to keep going, but Fast Eddie Clark decided he was also going to knock on the head." And Fast Eddie, I think from day one, he was quitting every 2 weeks anyway. But it was all with Lemmy. It was like I was well prepared to keep going, but it wasn't their band. They didn't have the commitment I did and stuff. And listen, hearing from Fast Eddie, he said that was absolute bollocks. He said Lemmy a lot of the time for weeks would go by and he just couldn't be asked. It was you couldn't get him to rehearsals. He hated rehearsing. I mean, all through his career. And he couldn't get the right speed. He couldn't get the stuff he needed to get him up. Yeah, and he said it was absolute murder. You'd have to physically try and drag him out of bed to make a rehearsal, or he'd slump in the van. He'd be all pissed off and moody, and not surprisingly, given photos of him, but apparently he did really have bad trouble with his teeth back in those days. He was always sort of really in agony of toothache, sitting in the back of some knackered out old van driving to a gig in wherever up the motorway. I think they had motorways in England then, I don't know. Huddled up with a shawl around him. Apparently his van's always breaking down as well. Apparently Lemmy was under a van one time and he's trying to fix it and the jack broke. That was the thing. Fast Eddie Clark was telling the story, and he was at the singer's house of this band. He was telling that story, and Fast Eddie, he had a coughing fit because he smoked tons. He had a coughing fit. He started coughing because laughing so much. Then he took one step backwards, and the singer's cat ran behind his legs, Fast Eddie, and he tripped over. He was like banged his head off the wall or a kitchen surface. It was full of these stories. It's a damn shame Fast Eddie Clark's gone now, because I think someone should have written his book. Anyway, I've gone off the rails there. But anyway, yeah, so once again, Lemmy presents himself basically in the heavy metal warrior. I carry on regardless, no matter what. I think there was that thing essentially with Lemmy, but there were a lot of people pulling him along, giving him a kick up the arse and trying to get him to where he needed or wanted to be. He did have a lot of that, which he doesn't really acknowledge in the book at all. He's very much, the heavy metal, the hard rocker loner, basically. But one thing that comes through is he's I don't know if he faked it some. No, Lemmy never faked anything, but but why should he's not the sort of blurting his true feelings of everything anyway, no more should he be. But I wonder how actually blasé he was about Motorhead's very up and down career. Absolute top of the tree, say 80, 81, to like the end of the 80s when they were struggling to get a record deal and everyone thought they were knackered, they were over. Before they had that sort of resurgence in the early 90s with 1916, which again, and then the next album, once again they were back down because it was a bit of a hit and miss affair, March or Die. But so Lemmy just always seems like as long as I can still play, I'm happy and stuff. I don't need huge success in that. But he certainly he did chase it a bit. And he says in White Line Fever, team up Ozzy and stuff, and just absolutely just getting so sick of record companies, just almost it seems deliberately trying to, if Motorhead had a chance of once again after their sort of 1980 heyday, like they had a chance with no more. That's Ozzy Osbourne, that, isn't it? I Ain't No Nice Guy. Like the record company was telling radio stations to stop playing it because they all picked up on it because like Ozzy Osbourne and Slash were on it. This is the start of the night. I mean, Slash. Like Guns N' Roses were, at absolute zenith. So of course, radio's going to be all over that. And Lemmy was just like, what the record company Sony were actually actively trying to kill it, and that's must have been very, very difficult to deal with that. And I think that's why I had to put up this slightly blasé, as long as we're playing and touring, I'm all right type attitude. But I can just imagine it must have rankled him sometimes seeing maybe lesser acts getting much more acclaim that Motorhead should have been getting. You see live clips of them playing, but at that time it was just insane. It was when Filthy Animal was on his way out for the last time. You see, like they went for a spate of opening up with I'll Be Your Sister. They just play it so fast, and it was awesome. When they were playing, supporting Ozzy, or with I think Guns N' Roses and Metallica got them in, supporting them on their big arena tours and stuff. So they got the proper stage and they got the proper sound and everything. Absolutely awesome. A few old videos on YouTube. Anyway, gone off topic there again, but the book, yeah. So it doesn't. This book, yes, it doesn't go into. Lemmy doesn't do great monologues about what he was feeling at the time. There's kind of the reference to the love of his life, Susan, who died of heroin overdose, and he just mentions that really, and just moves along. So there's no great reflection or anything in the book. It's pretty much, to me, it's like a Motorhead song. It just charges along at 100 miles an hour. It's a great read. Fantastic. I mean, felt over way too soon. I would like to be longer, but then that would have entailed him going into more detail, which he was never going to do. I mean, perhaps only to his very, very nearest and dearest might he elaborate a bit more. Yeah, so that's What I Feel. I mean, he was always going to get a great A1 thumbs up review from me. And reference should be made to Janice Garza, who I think Lemmy spoke to her and she took down his words and sort of tidied it up and stuff. She did a great job, and she was an active Motorhead supporter back in the day. She did a great thing on them in Rolling Stone, I think, in the early 90s, and which Lemmy acknowledges in his book. I think they did some tour with some other bands that are long since gone, like Metal Church and Dangerous Toys and these bands, and Janice Garza referred to them as what's it, the tangy filling in an otherwise bland noise sandwich. That's great. Yeah, so I mean, it's Lemmy's book, and 2002 it was released, so that was the year they were released. Oh God, Hammered, which is for me certainly one of their patchier albums, and as we all know, 2002. So they had another 13 years in them, and they had a couple more really good albums, especially Inferno. They're really Inferno a few years later, so they're going to continue for a bit more. And Lemmy, at the time he wrote it, he said we're in fine shape and stuff. Even like he doesn't refer to his like he collapsed in 2000, in the 1999-2000, and for a time that people thought he was really seriously ill. I mean, he was, but there was actually, I mean, Mick Wall saying, everyone was saying he was dying and stuff. I mean, even then I think he was having trouble with his feet because of the circulation, because he had diabetes, but that doesn't even get a mention in his book. He's just definitely not one to hang about and overanalyze things or about trivial things like, you know, health. He mentions, he said, I collapsed, but it was a long tour, so what did anyone expect or something? It's kind of like that. So yeah, just fantastic book, and try a little review there and chuck it in, mix it up with a few other things I've found out and read and stuff. But I could talk about it for ages, but I'll stop it there. Cheers.